Hello and welcome. I am Philippa Haynes.
Excellent. Good to know who you are. As you know. And I'm Mark Lee. Welcome to another episode of the Accountant's Success Secrets podcast. This is where we showcase and celebrate successful accountants who have been running their own practice for a good few years and whose stories can inspire and encourage other accountants in practice around the UK.
Good stuff. We asked them to share their story, including the highs, the lows, and what they've learned on the way. Our aim is to provide some fundamental insights for you, our loyal listener. So if you'd like to share your story in a similar way, do please get in touch with Mark or myself.
Absolutely. Now, our podcast today is again supported by the Tax Advice Network. Their website exists to enable you to find exactly the right tax specialist whenever a client's tax issue, challenge or problem demands a second opinion, or when you want to avoid going beyond your own level of competence and experience. It costs nothing to use the website, where you'll find tax experts addressing over 100 areas of tax. Just choose the advisor you want and contact them directly through the website. Simply visit taxadvicenetwork.co.uk to find out more.
Great stuff. So today on our podcast, we are delighted to introduce Rob Newman, who started his own practice in the year 2000. Yeah. He later merged it into what is now CCM, Carter, Collins and Myer, a full-service three-partner Manchester-based accountancy firm, of which he is now managing director. Away from the office, Rob has a passion for martial arts. I didn't think I'd say that. His diverse background, which includes experience as a chef, soldier, bodybuilder, and he brings a unique perspective to his work. Can you imagine that?
Welcome, Rob. Is there anything else you'd like to add by way of introduction?
Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for having me on this. No, there isn't. I'm sure I will waffle on with loads of other stuff as we get going. Because for anybody who does know me, I don't shut up.
We'll do our best to contain things, but you've got some great stories to share, I know. And as you know, we do aim to try and keep the podcast to around 30 minutes. We do that by focusing the discussion around a few key questions. So I'll start with a combination one. What attracted you to start your own practice? And how did you go about doing that?
Well, I have to be completely honest about how I felt open my own practice. I have a very complicated background, a personal background, which most people, for time I tried to hide and then I just embraced. I, through a very long process, went from joining kitchens at 16 years old in the Savoy Group as a trainee, walked out of that, ended up signing up for the army at 17 years old, initially as a cook. From cook, I ended up attached to 5th Airborne. 5th Airborne takes me through P Company. I end up as part of the parachute regiment. Options for change comes in mid-1990s, and it looks like I'm going to be made redundant at that point. And the army says, here, why don't you train this? And it was the initial training for accountancy. And I sort of fell into it. Having got into accountancy, having actually started it, I found a place in a lovely, lovely Manchester practice. I won't name any names of any firms at this point, but for those who do know it, they are wonderful people still. However, I was immediately unsatisfied and unhappy because, literally a couple of weeks before I'd been in Yugoslavia, and I decided to quit. As I quit, they said, why don't you help those people over there? And those people were an embryonic corporate finance team. I got into corporate finance at the very early stages of it, because nowadays I don't think I would have been given a look in. I think you've got to have a double fuss from Cambridge nowadays to get into it. But in those days, you could. I still didn't like that. It just all seemed very mundane to me at that point. And I thought, I know, the way to make this better is for me to have my own firm. And for me to have my own firm, I started trying to get some clients. That was mid-90s. By 2000, I had £100,000, £150,000 worth of clients. I thought, I'll start a practice. But, oh, my God, I'm working all day trying to get clients. I'm doing all night trying to do this work. So if I got bigger, I could have some staff. So I got bigger and I got some staff, and then I had staffing problems. So I thought, if I got bigger still, I could have people that would look after those staff. And I got bigger still, and the people that were looking after those staff didn't look after those staff, so they brought their own problems. So I thought, well, what I'll do is I'll drive full growth for more revenue, and I can have even more people who will look after those people who will then take care of the infrastructure, and that didn't work either. And here we are. That's pretty much what happened.
Wow. So, I mean, I guess, we can even ask now, going on to the second question, but I mean, it's part of the first really, which is, what did you learn on that journey? Because obviously, going from sort of pea company and doing chefing and all of that, then to sort of going into accountancy where you were suddenly really bored, and then you were sort of growing and kind of bringing on people, and still that wasn't enough. I mean, what were you thinking, Rob? What was going on?
There's a few things that I'd say. There's some personal lessons, there's some business lessons. One of the things that took me personally an awful long time to accept, and once I did, changed my own life significantly, was that I actually like fighting. And I mean, in all forms. I like fighting physically, hence martial arts still to this day. I had an amateur boxing career. I was never going to be a pro. I had no chin, but I liked getting in the ring. Right? I like paper conflicts. I like arguing things. I genuinely enjoyed that. And for years and years, I used to think, why is it me that's always got these fights? Why am I constantly fighting people? It's not fair. It's not fair. And only when I actually accepted, hang on a minute, I'm the one that always seems to end up in fights. And I'm the one that always seems to do this. Once accepting of that, I kind of stopped fighting, in truth. I have had so few conflicts since that it's untrue, because I then recognized it and recognized the triggers that were causing that and bringing that. I think that same fighting spirit is what caused me to keep pushing the firm forward and keep driving it forward. And it's never, for me, it's never been, money is brilliant and making money is fantastic and I can always spend it. I mean, Christ, I once spent 6 months army wages in a weekend with my then girlfriend, now wife, by, checking back into Claridge's where I'd once been in their kitchens. Savoy Group, Claridge's was part of it in those days. And, going on a complete bender, going down Jermyn Street, buying shirts and suits and dresses for my wife and all this, or then girlfriend, and at this stage onto it. But it's never been the money. It's always been pulling the rabbit out of the hat, wondering how the hell you did it and no one else did. And even some of the professional conflicts I've been in. I mean, I got involved in I was one of the early high court cases on disguised remuneration. Chancery Client Partners et al. Versus MRC 957. You can find it on Bailey. And I came up with a number of the thoughts. I wasn't all alone. The lawyers did an awful lot, and the QC on that case was amazing. But a lot of the thought processes behind that were about, for me, creating that fight of, I'm not just going to give in. I'm not just going to do something. I'm going to find a way. There is a way to do this. There's got to be something that can be done. And business-wise, a lot of the growth, a lot of the things has been that. Learning, taking that path has been a lesson for me. I would say to many other people, in my opinion, if you set up your own practice and go down that route, you are going to face all sorts of challenges, all the stuff that you never trained for, right? You need a support network around you. You need an awful lot of support network around you. For a long time, I personally didn't accept that. It was only in the last few years, again, I accepted that and reached out to people like Mark, for example, and had some tremendous sessions with Mark talking about the business and where I'm going and what I'm trying to do onto it. I was very much an island for a long time. What that meant is some of the people are now my partners were managers for a very long time, were in reality partners, but they used me as their support network because I seemed to have the answer to everything and seemed to be able to always come out with, Rob knows what to do on this. I didn't necessarily. They don't necessarily know that the number of times I used to sit there and what the hell do I do now on it? That happened over and over. But I think partly my own temperament, and I do think partly the military was, well, lead, follow, or get out the way. Do something. If you sit here, you're all dead. Whereas if you do something, you may not be. You might survive on it. And I think if you're starting out in a firm, you're starting out in practice, either accept that you are going to have to go down so many dead ends and blind alleys fighting things yourself, or get that support network around you early. And if you get that support network around you early, and it's so much easier to do now than it was 24 years ago, you know, Facebook forums, LinkedIn forums, things like that, Mark's mentoring groups. The closest I had to that, and an honourable mention to one person I will shout out, who did give me some brilliant advice at times, was Chris Fredrickson back in the day.
Yeah.
Chris Fredrickson and I had a pretty good relationship. He once said, by the end of tonight, you'll work for me. I'm going to take you out for dinner and you'll work for me. And I didn't, right? I did have a fantastic dinner, and what a raconteur Chris is.
Oh, yeah. Not half.
Oh, wow. What a guy. I mean, he had some amazing stuff and was totally beguiling. I didn't sleep the rest of that night. You know, I leave his presence and go home. My head is absolutely, you know, like whirring from it. And he did give me some great stuff, but it was still at a distance. It was still hands off, whereas you can get a lot more support nowadays on things, and you can be involved in a lot more communities. And certainly for myself, accepting that and being willing to, well, it's not even, I didn't even have to accept it. It's finding those communities has changed massively.
Yeah. Rob, can I just ask you one thing before you carry on? So, which is great. I'm loving it. But so you said that you needed to operate not as an island, and obviously you're talking now about all of the support network. But I'm just trying to work that out with sort of Army and P Company, because there you only survive if you work as a team, if you know what I mean. So there aren't many islands who operate like that. So where did that come from?
But they're different. The people,
right?
In my opinion, this is my opinion again, and I'm not trying to. I'm not saying, please don't anybody listening to this take this as a negative for accountants, right? The people I met in the army and in kitchens were so different to the people I met when I came into accountancy.
Get it.
The people I met in gyms and kitchens and the army they're all similar, and they were all my sort of person. A spade's an effing spade. Let's you know who you are. Let's get on with it. We're all in this together. The accountancy crew that I came across in the beginning felt to me like I didn't feel comfortable with them for whatever reason. It may be my own background, it may be whatever. I never felt comfortable with them. I always felt there was ulterior motives. I always felt there was an agenda. I did a stint at one of the big firms, and I felt there like everybody was trying to cut everybody else's throat, is how it felt.
Yeah.
Whereas the military's not like that. The military is absolutely, you'll die for the guy who sat next to you on it.
Yeah, I think that's a really important. Sorry, Mark. That's a I just love that. It's a really important point. And one of the things I sort of talk about is finding your tribe. And obviously now down the road you've found your tribe, and it's taken obviously a while to do that. I'm assuming that expands through to finding your ideal clients, those that you really want to work with, and those who want to work with you. Same thing.
Yeah, completely. I mean, it's the old cliche that you attract to you the clients that mirror who you are.
Absolutely.
At times I've then looked at my own client base going, oh my God, is that who I am on it? Christ, if that's what I'm attracting.
Yeah, that awareness is really important, and it's not something that everybody does. And by the way, I had a similar experience at one of the big four firms that I chose to leave because I concluded I was too dissimilar in so many ways to everybody else at my level that I was never going to make it to the top or make it. I've had many people telling me later, further down my career, oh, you should have stayed, you'd have been great. At the time, it certainly didn't feel that way. So I can relate to that entirely. Well, something just I'm curious about in terms of the growth of your practice. And you say it wasn't the money. Is it doing the accounting work? Is it building the practice? Is it a bit of both? Is it giving advice to clients? What is it that sort of turns you on?
It's a combination, outright, it's a combination of all of those. I love giving advice to clients. I love working with clients. I love problem solving. You know, in the firm today, when there is a hopeless situation that nobody else seems to know how to deal with, let's get Rob involved. You know, I've got a meeting this afternoon with, they got the dream contract for building part of the new co-op stadium, and it's all gone wrong. And the company, they're going to lose everything, and there's personal guarantees for it and all this kind of stuff. And I actually do know what to do. And I actually do know. And outright. On the phone the other day, I turned around to Tony and go, Tony, I can solve this. It'll feel like a kidney stone passing. It's not going to be pleasant. Just because I say I can solve it and get you out the other side doesn't mean this is all going to be sunshine and rainbows, because it's not. But you can get out the other side, and this is what we're going to have to do. And I genuinely love that. I am a massive believer in personal responsibility, and capability brings responsibility. And if you are capable of doing something, in my opinion, you have the obligation to try and do that. And okay, you have to get on with the individuals involved, and there has to be personal chemistry to it. But if I can help somebody, one of the finest moments, and this isn't a Rob story. One of the finest moments in my professional career, right? I'm in a little office in one of the suburbs of Manchester, and this couple wander in saying, I want to buy a post office. It's early 2000s, 3, 4, something like that, right? I want to buy this post office, and we've got this bag of books, and it's literally old stuff, 12-column cash books and invoices, receipts, etc. Will you have a look at it for us? Now, I didn't even charge a fee, right? There was no fee involved in this, and I never heard from the people after this meeting. Never ever heard from them ever again. But within 20 minutes, I said, this thing's losing 50 grand a year, and you're gonna go broke. It's as simple as that. They're selling it because you're gonna go broke. It's obvious from the books what's going on here. And you could watch the color drain out of this couple's face, because they were going to put their life savings into it and remortgage their house. And they there and then rang the transfer agent and pulled out of buying this post office and walked away from it. And I know I saved them, right?
And you saved them for more than you thought at the time, if you think about it.
Yeah, I know, with what you walked into. Yeah. And I have another story around Horizon as well. I knew, right? I had another client who owned a post office, and I didn't know the scale of Horizon at all, because I would have tried to shout about it.
Yeah.
But I knew that client got wrapped up in Horizon, and I actually got the post office to drop their case against him in 2003, because I proved that the computer system was wrong in 2003 to them, and they didn't proceed with it. And I just, at the time, it was a little Manchester client with a little post office in Manchester. And if you sat and did it, old-fashioned tick, 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 you could show that tills existed on the system that didn't exist in reality. And you could show that things were happening. The shame for so many of those people is they didn't walk into an accountant. And they went, so many of those guys went lawyers, understandably so, because they're getting accused of stuff. And unfortunately, many lawyers don't understand accountancy. If more accountants had been involved in that earlier days, we could have saved so many people. And I'm not trying to, again, this isn't I'm amazing. I don't mean it like that. But if you can do something, if you can change something, if you can achieve something like that, yeah.
I just love that attitude and approach. And I must say, it's the way that I feel sometimes as well. I know I remember when you were in the Sole Practice Club, and then you left because you'd taken on a couple of partners, but you promoted them up.
Yep.
And
one of those guys, right? Two things of that. Mark, you helped me so much at that point, right? The process of being able to talk to you as an independent and work out what it was I was thinking without any judgment, without any, well, you should do onto it, allowed me to, over a period of time, 3 or 4 months, I worked out what I was thinking. And by working out what I was thinking, I then promoted those two people within a week of making the decision. Because it allowed me to go, yes, this is the path. And thank you for what you did at that time. Right?
I'm delighted. Thank you. So that was a good thing.
And one of those guys, though, had started with me at 16.
Oh, wow.
Out of school, had trained AAT, had gone and done a further qualification, gone and done the major tax qualification, had built portfolio of fees up, had been with me through all sorts of stuff, and with me. So the guy has always been with me. Yeah. Lovely guy, brilliant fella, very proud of him. I feel like his older brother because there's 15 years between us.
With good reason, I'm sure. Those are examples of positive things. What about some of the mistakes that you've made, and what did you learn from them? Correct them?
Yeah,
we don't have time for all of them.
Yeah, I'm going to say right. There is more than you could possibly comprehend. Right. Again, quite a personal one for myself that I would actually say. And again, a lot of things can be managed better than they used to be. Right. because of my background and schooling and lack of schooling and coming to schooling later and everything else, I have long struggled with written correspondence, right? And there was a period of time where my written correspondence used to come across as very aggressive to people. And it wasn't meant to be, it just did onto it. And use of modern technology and tools has allowed me to have a constant editor on anything that I write. I use the Hemingway app. I put every piece of written work through it, and it just makes it nicer. It still says what I'm trying to say, but it makes it nicer. And it makes a lot of difference to it. If you know the lesson of weaknesses, if you know you have a weakness, tackle it. Find a way to tackle it. Don't go the rest of the world is wrong. I did this for so long with my written correspondence. Why are these people all angry at me? I'm just telling them X. There's not, I don't mean anything onto it. And I could deliver it in person quite happily with them. If I rang them up and talked to them, but I then have a fear of the telephone. So I would retreat behind it. And I then end up saying to people, please, can we meet in person? Please, can we meet in person? Because if we could meet in person, I could talk to them. Whereas I feared the telephone and my written correspondence was dreadful onto it. So again, the lesson I would say is spend the time, the effort and the energy to learn what your own individual weaknesses are. And then find a way of managing it. It's not going to make it all better. Find a way of managing it. Reach out to people like Mark. Reach out to the support networks. Listen, there's some fabulous Facebook forums that I'm involved with on some of it. And someone comes on, if someone came on there now and go, oh my God, all my written correspondence is terrible. Nobody judges them on those kind of things. You go, right. Have you looked at the Hemingway app? It could make quite a bit of difference to you, and brilliant. Thank you so much. Make use of that community. I know it's hard to find. And I know I'm a very proud person, and it was hard to say I have this weakness, but you can manage it. You can deal with it. You can find a way that it no longer has a huge impact on you. I would say that is one of the biggest lessons to actually know where you kind of go, I'm stuck here. Now, by all means, learnings come at the edge of knowledge. So if you decide you want to be part of the tax network and you want to be a tax person and have a particular specialism, but you aren't there now, know that. Approach people in the tax network. I've got this tax problem. I've gone out and found this client, and here's a pack of stuff, and it's all horrific, and it's a terrible HMRC situation. Please, Mr. Tax Network person, can I work with you on learning how to deal with this? Now, I'm sure there's the odd one who go, no, go away. I don't want to talk to you. But the majority, if you say that to you, go, yeah, okay, no problem. I mean, personally, because of the corporate finance background, I still do, for the size of firm we are, I still do quite a bit of corporate finance work. I take on quite a few deals, and I can punch a bit above the weight that we actually are. I'd also do a lot of dispute resolution work in terms of valuations. And I get a lot of lawyers talking to me in terms of valuations, divorces and business partnership bust-ups and this kind of stuff to it. Now, if that's come via another accountant and the other accountant says to me, this is fascinating stuff, I've never done it and I have no idea what to do, but I'd love to learn, no problem. I'm not so scared that the world's big enough. I'll go through what I've done. I can't give you all the knowledge that's in my head because we haven't got time for that. But I'll talk you through how I go about it. Here's the report. What do you learn from that? What do you actually get on with it?
What a wonderful attitude and approach, Rob. Absolutely love that.
Just to add on to that, because I think you're answering the question anyway about what makes you and your firm unique. But what do you think your clients would say if I asked them the question? What do you think that they would say about Rob and CCM?
Right, I am laughing because again, there's been a bit of a sea change of this recently. If you'd asked me that question 2 months ago, I'd have sat here with doom and gloom. I'll be honest. The reason I'd have sat here with doom and gloom is because at heart I'm still squaddy. Shit rolls uphill, right? And what happens is all the complaints and all the problems always end up with me. So my own view for a long, long time was everybody hates me, right? Because I always ended up with the problems, right? The guy who has been with me forever and is partner of the firm, 2 months ago said, Bob, that's not how it actually is. I'm going to have a push here. And he literally started ringing up our client base going, will you give us a Google review? And in 2 months, we've gone from nothing to 115 Google reviews, right? All of which are like 4 and 5 star. And all these people I've worked with for years going, Bob's amazing. We really like him. And it's really, I've been like, really, they do like me. I'm not hated by all these people.
That's important though, isn't it? Just to
Yes,
sort of make sure that you're asking what's
yes,
going on. Yeah.
yes.
And
In all which
got,
ways.
yeah, and they're all over the CCM website as well,
Yep,
which
yep.
makes it look very impressive. And it's sort of testimonials, it's credibility, evidence and credibility, evidence and you are what you say you are, rather than it's just all puff and
Yeah.
that sort of stuff. Well done.
Yeah.
It's got a bit of your personality in it as well. It's quite sort of it's a visual treat, isn't it? It is. It's a feast for the eye. Yeah. It's full on, but I mean, it represents you brilliantly, which is,
Thank you.
from my perspective, that's what I do, which is you need to be able to give people a clue about who you are when you
Yep.
pick up the phone, the type of approach you're going to get.
Yep.
Brilliant. Yeah.
Yep.
And the fact that the partners in the firm are the guys that you've promoted up, having worked with you for a while, rather than recruited in from elsewhere, the culture that you've inculcated. Oh God, never used that word before.
That's a big word. I'm not even sure I know what it means, although I like it.
Yeah. Anyway, the Rob culture within the practice
Yeah.
down in CCM clearly leaks out and is apparent to everybody who works there and to your clients as well, I imagine.
I hope so.
Are there any other final secrets to your success, would you say?
I would say, again, persistence. If you're going to start a firm, you have to keep going. It's as simple as that. You've just got to keep on and on and on. The more rejections you get, the better, right? You're working numbers. The more times you are rejected on something, the better it's going to be, right? Because you get used to being rejected, you get accepting of that rejection, and you're also working numbers, right? From a business marketing development point of view, it is still a numbers game, in my opinion. Yes, okay, you can try and target that down and get a better response to things and get better signups to stuff, but fundamentally, you're still pressing palms and throwing mud at a wall. You've still got to put yourself out there and still got to find that tribe and those people. So the more rejections you get, the better it is. And you've got to get rejected. You've got to have persistence. You've just got to keep on and on and on and on and on. And yes, you'll have hippo time, sitting in the mud, wallowing, feeling sorry for yourself because you're a human being. But then you've got to get up and do something.
And that persistence, Bob, which I entirely agree with, is that writing letters, sending emails, putting content online?
Yes.
All of that.
All of it. Because at different times, different things works, right?
Yeah.
The foundations of my firm was direct marketing, direct mail, literally. It was, I literally got Yellow Pages out back in the day, and I literally started writing letters. And then I have done every variant of that imaginable. And I've been through telemarketing, which worked amazingly well in 3, 4, 5, 6, and then started dying a death. And by 9, 10, 11, 12, didn't produce anything. Email marketing has worked at times. Postcards have worked at times. Networking referral groups have worked at times. You've just got to cycle all through it. I mean, in the last year, 18 months, I've put an awful lot of effort, which is only just starting to be seen and come to fruition into SEO, websites, social media stuff. It's only just starting, and it's taken 18 months to a year to get to that point.
Yeah, and it's so important to recognize that rather than to assume any of these things work overnight. So thank you for sharing that as well.
Yeah, I mean, we're sort of, again, always getting to the end, which is a real shame because there was so much we could still talk about. But for me, you just come across, I mean, it's so clear who you are, what you are, and how you do stuff. And your tenacity and your energy is really the thing that kind of strikes me. And I suspect, and as you've said, you just keep going on and on and on and fighting and fighting and fighting. And I think
I got through Big Company back in the day.
Yeah,
I
but
was
you are
not a natural athlete.
no, yeah. So there's something there in the mindset and the spirit, and as you've said, it's been a while to find your tribe, and there'll be other people out there who are trying to find their tribe as well, and certainly with their prospects. And
Yep.
I'm sure you'd say the same, which is find your tribe, work out who you are, look in the mirror, and then reflect it out again. So I absolutely love all of that. I guess what we need to do, there will be lots of people who are just fascinated to speak to you more. I'm absolutely sure. So how can they find you? What's the best route to get in touch?
LinkedIn, probably the best route. I'm very active on LinkedIn nowadays.
Yep.
I'm 1 or 2 posts a day on stuff. I respond to everybody, even if it's marketing nonsense from people of buy my rubbish. I still send. Unfortunately, there's no mutual opportunities at this time. I always respond.
I'll send you a message later.
It's probably the easiest way. If you want to find my website, uk-ccm.com, have a look at that. See if you can steal any of the ideas from it, if they're useful for you. Always happy to have Zoom calls, diary and all that dependent. Always happy to have Zoom calls and chat with people. Love talking to people. Reveling in my relatively recently found role of being liked within the accounting community. One lovely person who I helped recently actually sent me a bottle of wine recently, and I practically cried. And I mean that if she's listening, she asked the tax thing. I helped the tax thing. I gave her the answer to it. 20 minutes of my time, and she was so thankful she sent me this bottle of wine. And nobody has ever liked me in the accounting world before. And I was kind of like, this is so new. I don't know what to do. And
I
brilliant.
suspect there'll be a lot of positive reaction to this podcast.
Oh yeah.
As well. Philippa, how can listeners find out more about you and Insight 101?
So a little bit like Rob, you can find me on LinkedIn, or you can visit my website, www.insight101.co.uk, and I support accountants to stand out, of which Rob would be a real standout example because he's just like a massive, massive character. But we can stand out in different ways. You don't have to be a big character either. But Mark, how do we find out more about you and your Soul Practice Club?
Thank you. Everywhere online, I'm Bookmark Lee, including on LinkedIn. Even my business card is a bookmark. Always ask for one if I meet you in real life. Who uses business cards these days? And the website is bookmarklee.co.uk.
Great stuff. That's it then. If you've enjoyed the Accountant Success Secrets podcast, please share the love online. A bit like Rob, get those reviews in. Subscribe, leave that review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or YouTube. Let us have your feedback, please. That would be great.
Absolutely. It all helps to potentially broaden the reach of the podcast. And do please contact either Philippa or myself if you'd like to be interviewed on a future podcast. Rob, thank you so much again for coming on the podcast today.
Thank you guys.
Too. Until
Great
next time,
stuff.
on the Success Secrets podcast, or anywhere else we might meet online or in real life. Bye-bye for now.
Bye-bye.
Bye.